Hello everyone, and welcome to today's discussion. Today, let's explore together how to approach the fear of being disliked through scientific understanding and practical methods. If you've ever felt that familiar anxiety when someone doesn't respond to your message, or your heart races at the thought of expressing your opinion, you're not alone. This is something many people experience, and there are evidence-based approaches that might provide support for managing these feelings. The fear of being disliked, scientifically known as rejection sensitivity, is more than just a personality trait. Current research suggests it's a neurobiological response pattern that involves specific brain networks and mechanisms. A research institution's recent neuroimaging study found that individuals with high rejection sensitivity show heightened activity in particular brain regions when anticipating social feedback. Specifically, the ventral striatum, which is part of our brain's reward system, and the dorso-medial prefrontal cortex, which is involved in understanding others' thoughts and feelings, both show increased activation. The anterior cingulate cortex is another key brain region involved in this process. This area activates during both physical pain and social pain, which helps explain why rejection can literally hurt. However, recent findings suggest that this brain activity reflects more than just pain. It represents a recalibration of how we perceive our social worth and value. When we experience acceptance, the ventral striatum's reward circuitry activates, creating positive feelings. When we face rejection, the anterior cingulate cortex triggers learning mechanisms that help us adjust our social behavior. Research indicates that rejection sensitivity affects approximately 12% of adults, with studies showing significant correlations with social anxiety, depression, and other mental health challenges. A university research team discovered through brain imaging that people learn from both acceptance and rejection feedback through distinct neural mechanisms. This means our brains are naturally designed to process social information and adjust accordingly, which is actually an adaptive function that helped our ancestors survive in social groups. Meta-analyses examining multiple studies have shown that rejection sensitivity often involves hypervigilance to social cues. People with high rejection sensitivity tend to interpret neutral or ambiguous social situations as signs of rejection, even when that wasn't the intention. This pattern can create a cycle where the fear of rejection leads to behaviors that might actually push others away, creating the very situation we're trying to avoid. The latest findings in neuroscience research indicate that rejection sensitivity operates as a complex learning mechanism that helps calibrate social behavior. Multiple universities' joint research confirms that this isn't a fixed trait. Our brains have neuroplasticity, which means they can change and adapt throughout our lives. This is incredibly hopeful news because it means that with the right approaches, we can literally rewire our neural pathways to respond differently to social situations. Now let's discuss some practical methods that research has shown to be effective. These approaches are based on cognitive behavioral therapy principles and neuroscience research that demonstrates how we can work with our brain's natural ability to change and adapt. The first method is called cognitive awareness training. This involves developing the skill to recognize when rejection sensitivity is activated and learning to examine our thoughts more objectively. When you notice feelings of rejection or fear of being disliked, try the evidence examination technique. Take a moment to write down 3 possible alternative explanations for the other person's behavior. For example, if someone doesn't respond to your message immediately, instead of assuming they're angry or don't like you, consider that they might be busy, dealing with their own challenges, or simply haven't seen the message yet. This method is effective because it engages the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for rational thinking and problem solving. When we actively generate alternative explanations, we're strengthening neural pathways that support more balanced thinking. Research has shown that this practice can significantly reduce the intensity of rejection-related emotions over time. Another helpful technique within cognitive awareness training is probability assessment. When you have a thought like, "They definitely don't like me," try rating the likelihood that this thought is accurate on a scale from 0 to 100%. Often, when we step back and really consider the evidence, we realize that our feared outcomes are much less likely than our emotions initially suggested. The friend perspective method is also valuable. Ask yourself what you would tell a close friend if they came to you with the same concern. We're often much kinder and more rational when advising others than when dealing with our own worries. This technique helps activate our nurturing and supportive mindset, which can provide comfort and more balanced thinking. The second major approach is graduated exposure protocol. This method is based on the principle that we can gradually build tolerance to situations that trigger rejection sensitivity by starting with lower risk scenarios and progressively working up to more challenging ones. Research shows that this approach can create lasting changes in how our nervous system responds to social situations. Start with low-stakes social interactions, such as making small talk with cashiers or service workers. These interactions are brief and have minimal personal investment, making them ideal for practicing. As you become more comfortable, progress to medium-risk scenarios like sharing a mild opinion in group conversations or asking a colleague about their weekend plans. The key is to move gradually to more challenging situations, such as expressing disagreement respectfully in important relationships or sharing something personal about yourself in appropriate settings. Each successful experience helps build confidence and demonstrates that social interaction doesn't have to result in rejection. One specific technique within exposure therapy is called rejection collection. This might sound counterintuitive, but it involves intentionally seeking out minor rejections to desensitize your response system. For example, you might ask for a small favor that could reasonably be declined, or request a minor discount at a store. The goal isn't to get rejected, but to practice handling no in low-stakes situations so that it feels less threatening overall. This method works because it helps recalibrate your threat detection system. When you experience minor rejections that don't result in catastrophic outcomes, your brain learns that rejection isn't as dangerous as it initially perceived. A research institution study found that people who practiced this type of exposure showed significant improvements in their ability to handle social situations. The third approach is neuroplasticity-based mindfulness. This involves using mindfulness techniques specifically designed to work with the brain mechanisms involved in rejection sensitivity. The brain's ability to change, known as neuroplasticity, can be enhanced through consistent mindfulness practice. One effective technique is called the RAIN method: recognize, allow, investigate, and nurture. When you notice rejection-related emotions arising, first recognize what's happening without judgment. Allow the feelings to be present without immediately trying to fix or change them. Investigate the emotions with curiosity. Where do you feel them in your body? What thoughts are accompanying them? Finally, nurture yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a good friend. Daily mindfulness meditation, even just 15 minutes, can strengthen the prefrontal cortex's ability to regulate emotional responses. Research has shown that consistent meditation practice can actually change brain structure, increasing gray matter in areas associated with emotional regulation and decreasing reactivity in the amygdala, which is involved in fear responses. Body scan meditation is particularly helpful for rejection sensitivity because it helps you notice physical sensations associated with social anxiety. When rejection fears arise, you might notice tension in your shoulders, a tight feeling in your chest, or butterflies in your stomach. By breathing into these areas and approaching them with compassion, you can help your nervous system calm down. Present moment anchoring is another valuable mindfulness technique. When rejection thoughts start spiraling, focus on your immediate sensory experience. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This helps bring your attention back to the present moment rather than getting caught in anxious future scenarios. For maximum effectiveness with all these methods, it's important to practice during lower stress periods first, then gradually apply them during more challenging situations. Keep a reality check journal where you document actual outcomes versus your feared rejections. Often, you'll find that your worries were much worse than what actually happened. Use the 24-hour rule for responding to perceived social slights. Wait a full day before responding when you feel hurt or rejected. This gives your initial emotional reaction time to settle and allows for more thoughtful responses. Research shows that our emotional intensity typically decreases significantly within 24 hours if we don't feed the reaction with rumination. It's important to gradually eliminate safety behaviors that prevent authentic expression. These might include excessive people-pleasing, avoiding expressing opinions, or constantly seeking reassurance. While these behaviors might provide temporary relief, they prevent us from building genuine confidence in social situations. To summarize what we discussed today, let me share 6 key points that can support your journey with rejection sensitivity. First, your brain can be rewired to reduce rejection sensitivity through neuroplasticity. The same mechanisms that created these patterns can be used to change them with consistent practice. Second, cognitive restructuring combined with exposure therapy shows improvement rates of 65 to 80% in research studies. This means that with dedicated practice, most people can experience significant relief from rejection sensitivity. Third, the anterior cingulate cortex activity, which is involved in social pain, decreases with consistent practice of these techniques. This means that over time, rejection literally hurts less as your brain learns new response patterns. Fourth, generating alternative explanations for others' behavior helps break automatic rejection interpretation patterns. Instead of immediately assuming the worst, you can train your mind to consider multiple possibilities. Fifth, graduated exposure builds resilience without overwhelming your nervous system. By starting small and building gradually, you can develop confidence in a sustainable way. Sixth, mindfulness practice strengthens prefrontal cortex regulation over emotional responses. This gives you more choice in how you respond to challenging social situations, rather than being driven purely by automatic emotional reactions. Remember that changing rejection sensitivity patterns takes time and patience with yourself. These are skills that develop gradually with practice, much like learning to play a musical instrument or developing physical fitness. Each time you practice these techniques, you're building new neural pathways that support confidence and authentic self-expression. Most importantly, understand that the goal isn't to eliminate all sensitivity to social feedback. Some awareness of how others respond to us is natural and healthy. The goal is to develop a more balanced and realistic perspective that allows you to maintain genuine connections while staying true to yourself. Your journey toward reducing rejection sensitivity is unique to you. Some techniques might resonate more than others, and that's perfectly normal. Trust your own experience and adapt these methods to fit your specific situation and needs. If today's discussion provided any support or insight, please hit the like button to help others find this content. If you'd like to continue learning about mental health and evidence-based approaches for personal growth, please subscribe to join our community. May your hearts feel a little lighter, and thank you for listening until the end today. Take care of yourselves, and remember that you deserve authentic connections and the freedom to be yourself.